Chapter 7. What Volk Carries. They found her waiting for them in the corridor outside the District 12 atmospheric plant, alone. Her weapon was holstered and her hands were visible at her sides. 12 officers stood at the corridor's far end. Far enough to suggest she had told them to stay there. Close enough to suggest she hadn't entirely decided what she was doing yet. Commander Valk was a tall woman who had learned to use her height as a form of punctuation. She used it now, standing in the center of the corridor, still as a decision that had already been made. The air quality readings in District 12 changed 40 minutes ago, she said. 8% improvement in oxygen saturation. Particulate count down by half. She looked at the four of them, at Chen and Sarah flanking them, at the new traceries of light on Thane's hands. My engineers can't explain it. We can, Kess said. I know you can. Valk's eyes moved to the atmospheric plant's sealed door. 12,000 people are breathing better. I've spent the last 20 minutes deciding what to do about that. And, Thane said, and I'm still deciding. She looked at him directly. Blackwater, 15 years. Thane's jaw tightened. Feels like longer. You were on my extraction list 3 times. I pulled you out of the below twice. Her hand went still against her side, the closest she came to accusation. You never said anything. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what it was for most of it. Valk absorbed this visibly. Her face did the work of processing rather than hiding it. Protocol 7 is still active, she said. I have orders to contain all integrated individuals and prepare them for biological processing. She paused on those last 2 words in a way that suggested she had opinions about them. High Command classifies what you are as a species-level threat. What do you classify it as? Piria asked. Valk looked at her for a long moment. I don't know yet. Then let us show you what we know, Kess said. The truth, as directly as we can give it to you. After that, you decide. The truth, Valk said, is that my brother underwent transformation 8 years ago. The corridor went quiet. I watched it happen. I watched what it did to him. She paused. When she spoke again, each sentence landed separately. He stopped being able to tell me his own name. He spoke to things that weren't visible. He called me sister, but he couldn't remember that sisters meant Saris. Call that whatever you like. I call it erasure. It was resistance, Piria said quietly. Don't. Commander. Piria took 1 step forward. Her voice carried the quality it carried when she was speaking from the deepest part of what she was. I am not diminishing what you saw. I am telling you what caused it. The transformation is not painless when it is fought. And if he hadn't fought it? Valk's voice was sharp now. The practiced steadiness stripped away. If he had just let it happen, would he still be Davin? Would he still know my name? Or would he be something that remembered knowing my name, the way your guardian remembers teaching a child to read star charts? Remembers it the way a museum remembers a painting? Valk's hand drifted half an inch toward our comm unit. Behind her, 2 of the 12 officers shifted their weight, watching for a signal that hadn't come yet, but plainly could. It didn't come. Her hand dropped back to her side, empty, and the 2 officers settled. But the 4 of them had all seen it, how close the other outcome had just been. Piria was quiet for a moment. A real moment, not a pause for effect. Kess watched her and saw something she had not seen before, Piria uncertain. The anger from the memory pools was still there, banked but present. The anger at the planet's patience, at the luxury of something that doesn't die. I don't know, Piria said. Valk blinked. She had been braced for an argument, not an admission. The integration changes people, Piria continued. It changed me. My people have lived with it for 8 generations, and we are not what we were. We are more connected to the planet and less connected to some of the things that made us individual. I notice it. My grandmother noticed it. We chose it anyway, because the alternative was extinction, and a changed life is still a life. She paused. But I will not stand here and tell you your brother would have been fine. Because fine is not the right word for what integration does. Alive is the right word. Changed is the right word. Fine is what people say when they don't want to describe the cost. The corridor was very quiet. At the far end, the 12 officers stood at their distance, waiting for a command that was taking longer than expected to arrive. You killed him to end the suffering, Piria said. That was an act of love. Something moved through Valk's face before she could stop it, there and gone. The look of a woman hearing her own worst night said aloud by a stranger in front of 12 of her own officers. At the corridor's far end, nobody spoke. Nobody moved either. Don't tell me it was based on incomplete information, Valk said. I know what I saw. What you saw was real, Piria said. The suffering was real. The loss was real. And if he had survived it, he would have been different. Not the brother you knew. Someone else who contained the brother you knew. I cannot tell you that is a good trade. I can only tell you it is the trade that is on the table. Valk looked at her for a long time. Whatever was moving behind her eyes now was more complicated than Kess had expected. Not the slow arc toward acceptance that the story seemed to want. Something harder and less resolved. He's still there, Kess said, in the core's memory. The people who went through what he went through. The ones who survived the transformation. They're in the first city. And the ones who didn't survive? Valk asked. Also there, Kess said. The memory holds everyone. Does it hold them as they were? Or as it thinks they should have been? Nobody answered that immediately. It was the right question, and none of them had a clean answer for it. I don't know, Kess said. I know the memory I received from my brother felt like him. I also know I can't be certain how much of that feeling the planet shaped to make me comfortable. Valk looked at her with something that was almost surprise. That's honest. The situation calls for it. Valk was quiet for a long moment. Then she reached up and touched the insignia on her collar. A small gesture that seemed less ceremonial than private. I've known the Dawnforge numbers for 4 months. Torn showed me in confidence. I filed the report and watched it disappear. Filed it again, watched it disappear again. Now you do, Chen said from behind Kess. Now I know what the alternative costs, Valk said. Which is not the same as knowing what it costs to refuse it. She looked at the team one by one, ending on Thane. I need to understand, not through a scanner. Show me, she said. Kess extended her hand, palm up. Valk looked at it with the expression of someone stepping off something high. That suspended moment between the decision and the consequence. She took Kess's hand. What moved through the connection was not gentle and it was not slow. 30,000 voices, 3 centuries of attempted communication, the full weight of a planet's grief and patience. Kess held the channel open and steady, a conduit rather than a filter. But she held it honestly. She did not hide the navigation error. She did not hide Thane's cold thread from Mira. She did not hide the synchronized movements after the circuit. She let Valk receive what was true, including the parts that were true and troubling. It cost her something to leave the channel open that wide. Valk would see the doubt too, the version of Kess who wasn't certain whether she was leading her people toward salvation or delivering them somewhere she couldn't see the shape of yet. There was no way to hand over the truth and keep that part hidden, and once it was out of her hands, she had no way to control what Valk did with it. Valk's body went rigid. For a moment, Kess felt the channel do what it always did when someone new took its full weight for the first time. Everything arrived at once, with no sequence to sort it by. Past and present and elsewhere, collapsed into a single, unbearable now. Kess felt Valk's stagger transmit back through their joined hands, the small, full-body correction of someone trying to stay standing inside a flood. Somewhere in the current, she felt the exact instant Davin's voice reached his sister, unmistakable and unmediated, the actual cadence of a man who had once said sister and meant it, not the flattened memory of the word. Valk's fingers closed hard enough to hurt. 20 seconds passed on Kess's own count. It did not feel like 20 seconds to either of them. When she came back, her face was wet, but her eyes were sharp. "He wasn't gone," she said. "He was trying to reach me." A breath. And something else was trying to reach me through him. "Yes," Kess said. "Those are not the same thing. No, they're not." Valk released her hand, straightened. The composure came back gradually. It was a shape specific to her, not the familiar kind people fall into out of habit. She had seen something clearly, and she was choosing to act on it without pretending the clarity was comfortable. "Protocol 7 is suspended," she said. To the corridor, and to herself, and to the 12 officers who could hear her clearly. All integrated individuals are to be treated as civilians operating under emergency provisions. She touched her comm unit. "Torn, stop pretending to run diagnostics. I need a full status report on every atmospheric system in the lower districts." Torn's voice came back. "Been waiting for that call for 4 months." Kess noticed something in his voice that she hadn't noticed in the lab, a warmth sitting where his usual dryness should have been, a readiness that arrived a half-step too easily for a man who had spent 2 years hiding what he knew. She glanced at Vyra, and found her already looking back, the same question sitting in both their faces without either one saying it out loud. There was a city to save and no proof of anything yet, only a feeling, and feelings were exactly the thing this network had already taught her not to trust on their own. Kess filed it anyway, next to a pile that had stopped being a coincidence chapters ago. "Torres arrives in less than 2 days, Valk said. High Command won't accept a local suspension of Protocol 7. When he gets here, he'll have the authority to override me and the firepower to enforce it." 2 days, Kess said. 2 days to show this city enough that they'll make the choice themselves, before someone with a fleet tries to make it for them. Valk paused. "What do you need? Access to every district. A way to reach people without security interference." Kess paused. "And someone who can speak to the council in language they'll hear." "Torn," Chen said. "Agreed," Valk said. "Come on. We have a city to save, and less time than I'd like." She turned and walked toward her officers. Kess watched her explain to 12 people that everything they thought they knew about contamination was wrong. Clearly and without apology, without pretending the replacement was simple. She thought, there it is. There is someone who can do this. Because she sees it for what it actually is. Not because she's been persuaded to see it as something easier. The city breathed around them, cleaner than it had been in months. Somewhere above them, a clock was running that none of them could see, counting down from 2 days.
Chapter Guild, Stories for Your Mind.